Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. David Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. David is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine. Hi, David.
Hi, Rhonda.
And hi to all of our listeners out in podcast land. Welcome to episode 144. Today we're doing another Ask David session, but we're doing it specifically on questions relating to your 5 secrets of effective communication.
Yeah, relationship conflicts, in other words. And I want to thank everybody for a couple of things. First, you're sending in great questions, so we've already got some terrific Ask David general questions coming up here in a few weeks. Really neat stuff. And secondly, thank you for supporting the Feeling Good podcast. Last week, which isn't the last week when this will be published, because we're recording this weeks ahead of time, but just a few days ago, we downloaded our 1 millionth podcast, Feeling Good podcast, and that's fantastic. We also broke a new record for last month. We broke over 80,000 downloads for last month alone, which was April.
Wow.
And so I want to thank all of you for doing that and ask you to keep spreading the word to people. On the survey that we did, you indicated, I think 88% of you indicated that you're suggesting the podcast to friends, if you're a therapist, to patients, to colleagues, to family members, and we really do appreciate that. So what do we have here on the relationship conflicts?
We have Mike number 1 sent this pretty interesting question. He said, I love your 5 secrets of effective communication. I'm sure you could have easily made it 10 secrets, so I like that you have distilled it down to only 5. My question is, why does secret number 4, the I feel statement, not include thought empathy?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand this, but if you go back to the Feeling Good podcasts on the 5 secrets, you can go to the my website, feelinggood.com, and there's a list of all the Feeling Good podcasts and a search function. And you can search for 5 secrets of effective communication, and you'll see all the podcasts on the 5 secrets of effective communication. You'll be able to see a download of what the 5 secrets are. But
maybe we should say what they are here in case people haven't gone that.
Yeah, well, sure. What's the disarm? There's 3 listening skills: disarming technique, thought and feeling, empathy, and inquiry. Then that's the EAR, empathy, assertiveness, and respect. And then there's an assertiveness tool, which is I feel statements. And then a respect tool, which we call stroking. And you don't do them in this order. This is just a way of organizing them so you can learn them. But what's the disarming technique, Rhonda?
Disarming is when you find truth in what the other person is saying, even if it's uncomfortable for you, and you have to leave your ego aside to look at what the truth is.
Yeah, and it's based on the law of opposites, which is if someone gives you a false, fraudulent, mean-spirited, exaggerated, wrong criticism, and you defend yourself, which almost 100% of human beings do almost 100% of the time, you'll prove that the criticism is actually correct. And the next question will illustrate that very well. And then the other side of and that's a paradox, and the other side of the paradox is if you genuinely agree, and immediately with a criticism that has no truth, and you agree that it is true, the person who said it to you will instantly stop believing it. That's another paradox. We'll bring that out in the next.
Okay, well, here's question number 2. Also from Mike. Mike asked, also, I have seen communication models include expressing and listening for needs as well. Why are needs not included in your 5 secrets? Aren't needs and wants important to express?
Okay, well, let's focus on the answers to his 2 questions. The first one is that, thought empathy and I feel statements are just completely different from each other. When thought empathy means acknowledging how the other person is thinking, and you do that by repeating what they said to you, really using their words just as closely as possible. And then feeling empathy is acknowledging how they feel based on what they said to you.
And you do thought empathy because you want the person that you're speaking to, you want them to get a sense that they are really being heard.
Yes, and you said in your team training class last night, when you have another one starting, we'll announce it, maybe get you a bunch of people wanting to attend, but that you did this with the therapist. So if a patient says, oh, I've been doing all your darn homework and I'm feeling worse than I felt the first day I came here, thought empathy would just be repeating that. Say, Rhonda, you're telling me that you've been doing all the darn homework, and yet you're not improving, that you're feeling worse than when you first came. That would be thought empathy. And then feeling empathy would be, I wouldn't be surprised if you're feeling pretty frustrated and ticked off and disappointed. And then inquiry would be, can you tell me more about that? Am I reading you right? How have you been feeling? The disarming technique on that statement would be, you're right. I can see from your scores today that you're feeling worse than when you first came, and the homework assignment I gave you obviously was not helpful. If anything, it made you more frustrated and irritated.
And I can tell how you would really have to leave your ego aside.
Yeah.
To admit that.
Yeah.
Because you're admitting that you did something that wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to do that. They have too much pride in their work, or they're embarrassed.
That's right. And then the paradox, the law of opposites, is by agreeing that I'm not being helpful, it is helpful.
You automatically become helpful.
Yeah. Because people like to be heard. Now, the other question that Mike had is, aren't you allowed to express your wants and needs? Well, you're allowed to do anything you want, Mike. The 5 secrets is like the keys on a piano, and you can play whatever melodies you want. And but it takes a lot of skill to learn the piano. It takes a lot of skill to learn the 5 secrets of effective communication. And a lot of people say, the secret of relationships is to tell the other person, I need you to do this, or this is what I want. And from my own point of view, that often comes across as kind of demanding and self-centered.
And a little controlling.
Yeah. And will probably tick the other person off. If you were to give us some specific examples, Mac, we'd be glad to role-play them with you. There's only so far we can go on an abstract level like this. Right. But the answer to it is, how did the other person feel about what you said? And if they give you an A, we practice and give each other an A, a B, a C, or a D. And if you're getting a B or a C or a D, it means what you're saying is not working very, very well in the practice or in real life. And maybe you need to learn a more skillful way of communicating or dealing with that person, or whatever the conflict is between the two of you.
And my guess is, if you did a skillful 5 secrets from start to finish, your needs would be expressed.
Well, I don't even know what a need is, to tell you the truth. People like to convert wants into needs. I need your love. You hear that in popular songs all the time. But again...
Well, I'm assuming that if you're going to do the 5 secrets, you want to be close to another person. And you might need warmth and intimacy and closeness. And you're not going to ask, I need you to be warm with me. I need some intimacy.
Yeah.
But if you go through the 5 secrets, that will
it will result in that. You'll create it rather than, right, whine about it, or, beg for it.
Or demand
it or anything like that. Yeah, you say, gee, I've been feeling really kind of lonely, and I have the hunch that you're kind of ticked off at me, and I probably haven't been a very good husband, or whatever it is. Can you tell me what is going on and how you are feeling? And if you show that openness, that will create the intimacy. I did a training program for therapists on the 5 secrets of effective communication, a 2-day program. I don't know if I've mentioned this on a previous podcast or not. I'm so old and demented, but that's one of my better characteristics. Oh, sorry, I'm making noise with my pen. But this fellow had a conflict with his wife, and they weren't having any sex, and he'd been, pressuring her, that he wants sex, he needs sex, all that want and need stuff, for, more than a year, and she was just shutting him off, and, he was very angry and very frustrated, and I'm sure she was too. And then we practiced in the workshop using the 5 secrets to acknowledge to his wife that he probably hasn't been a very good husband, and he probably hasn't been supportive, and he's been demanding, and she's probably feeling unloved and lonely and hurt and angry and rejected. And he got pretty good at doing it in the workshop, and how to use some stroking and stuff. And so he promised to go home and practice it that night and give us a report the next morning on what happened. And he came back the next morning. He said he hadn't had any sleep at all, that he had done the 5 secrets with his wife, and they ended up making love all night long. In the morning, she said, "You should go to a David Burns workshop more frequently." So.
Okay, on that note, let's go to the next one. Hello, Dr. Burns. This is from Al. I've read your books and have definitely helped me overcome my anxieties and fears. However, I have a unique problem in that my wife has low self-esteem and anxiety issues for years, and for the last few years they have been directed at me. She fears that I lose my temper and yell at our children, or her children, as much as I tell her that won't happen. It is of no use and makes things worse for her. It got to a point where she filed for divorce, and we now live separately. To make things worse, she copes by complaining and crying to her sister and her mother, feeding each other and reinforcing and rationalizing their fears and anxieties. I see multiple cognitive distortions that she has, such as completely discounting the positive, catastrophizing and obsessing over negative events of years ago. She does realize she has anxiety and she has sought counseling, but it doesn't seem to be helping. I've mentioned CBT to her, but it is of no use as she thinks it's me who needs help. Is there a way I can help her realize that something like CBT would help her as well as help our kids? It does seem hopeless to me. Thank you and kind regards.
Well, Al, I think that's just a tremendously important question, and it's something I've been trying to teach unsuccessfully, I would say, for at least 35 years. And that's that you should never, in my opinion, you should never try to correct another person's distortions. When I write a book like Feeling Good, it's for you to correct your own distortions and your own thoughts and feelings. When you say to someone else, "Oh, you're involved in all or nothing thinking and overgeneralization," and you start pointing out their distortions, that will never in a million years be helpful to anyone. They'll just get resentful and angry and push you away. And if you want to learn how to help another person who's upset, who's depressed and angry with you, I would strongly recommend you read my book, Feeling Good Together, and learn the 5 secrets of effective communication. But it involves seeing the truth in what your wife is saying rather than arguing with her. And it involves the death of your ego. And some people are not willing to do that, to look at your own role in the problem, because it's very painful to see that you've been causing the very problem you've been blaming your wife for. I don't mean you specifically, Al, but that's true of me, it's true of Rod, it's true of all of us, and I'm sure it would be true of you as well. But this, Christ talked about this, Moses talked about this, Buddha talked about this. For thousands of years, the religious teachers and philosophers have been trying to teach people this, to find the solution within, rather than outside of you. And it's not really a popular topic. I'm afraid my book, Feeling Good Together, is the worst seller of any book that I've ever published, and I knew it would be. Because it's people don't want to have to look at your own role in relationship problems. It hurts, but it can be incredibly liberating. Should we model that for Al?
Sure. Which one should we model?
Well, why don't you be the angry wife?
Al, or David.
We'll be Al.
You'll be Al. Okay. You lose your temper all the time, Al, and you're always yelling at me, you're yelling at our children, you're yelling at my children from my first marriage, which is really causing trouble with that husband, and yeah, you're just always yelling. You're so angry. I mean, it's just so much. I'm ready to file for a divorce.
Right, now play the role of Al. I'm going to trick you into playing both roles. And this is a training technique. We use a treatment technique also. Now let's see if you can use the 5 secrets. And
all 5 secrets?
We'll give you a grade.
Okay. Let's call her Mary.
Yeah, Al and Mary.
Al and Mary, they sound good together. You know what, Mary, you're right. I do lose my temper all the time. And I have been yelling at, your children. I've been yelling at our children. And, you just told me that you're really upset with me that I've been losing my temper and yelling. And so much so that you filed for divorce. And I can, I really imagine how angry you are. I don't have to imagine. I can see how angry you are. But I'm also imagining that you're feeling kind of betrayed. And, when we got married, there was so much hope. So maybe you're feeling a little hopelessness and you're filing for divorce. So, besides, mistrust and lack of, I think mistrust and lack of hope. And is that how you're feeling, Mary? I want to hear more about, what the experience has been like being married to me and listening to me yell and arguing with me. What can you, you're such an important person to me. I want to know everything about what it's been like for you. Can you tell me more about it?
I think that's pretty good. Give it like a B+.
Wait, I'm not even done.
A minus. Oh, you're not done. Oh, okay. Okay.
Because that's only the first. No, I'm feeling really embarrassed that I've been yelling so much, and I feel a little hopeless too. I'm realizing that I need some more help to learn how to control my own anger, and I'm feeling so sad about losing you and losing, all of the time I have with our children. You are definitely the most important person in the world to me, and I'm committed to working this out. Again, can you tell me more about what it's like for you?
Yeah, that was really, really beautiful. It's getting up more into the A category. Just a couple tiny fine points there. Okay. I wouldn't say you're right. I do shout all the time because that's a fraudulent statement. I would say you're right. I do get angry and kind of shout and sound pretty threatening and dangerous sometimes. And you have every right to be feeling hurt and scared and angry with me and frustrated and I bet pretty lonely too.
Right, I left out that.
I would, and I want you to know that I feel ashamed and sad because I've been blaming you all these years, and now I'm realizing that I'm the one who's causing you to feel afraid, pushing you away, and then complaining that you should be closer to me, and I'm just sad and devastated to think about that. And although things are pretty bad between us, and it's hard for me to hear how I've been as a husband, I want to hear what you have to say, because I'm thinking this is the conversation we need to have to develop a more loving relationship, and I just really want you to tell me what it's been like for you. I haven't listened all these years, and I'm really I want to listen now. I want to hear what you have to say. How was that?
Oh my God!
Was that good?
I feel like I've just melted on the floor like butter. That was really beautiful.
Right, and why? And why? What's beautiful about it?
Well, you mentioned all of the feelings that she could be having: scared, hurt, angry, lonely. And those all ring so true, but you also, you didn't sound mechanical, like you were going through a formula.
Right.
You weaved in how sad and devastated he was feeling, and then you also said things. Acknowledged that things have been bad between the two of them. Yeah. And you said that this is the conversation that you want to be having with her, and you acknowledged that you hadn't been listening. Yeah. And it was just such an opening for communication. Yeah.
And if any listeners or therapists or non-therapists want to learn how to do this, it isn't easy. If you like that, I've been playing the piano a long time. And so if you want to learn to play the piano like that, I'm not bragging or something, but I'm just trying to tell you a raw fact that this is much harder to learn than how to overcome depression, because our human nature is to defend ourselves. And it is painful to suddenly see that when someone's mad at you, that you failed them. You failed your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband. It is the death of the ego. It's a spiritual thing as well as a psychological thing. It's not a trick with words. It has to come from the heart. But if you want to learn it, you've got to pick up my book, Feeling Good Together. You can get it on Amazon. It's a paperback. It's not too long. My daughter helped me edit it, so it's very readable. and but you have to do the written exercises while you read it. And if you're a therapist, we've got a lot of online trainings too. Like at my Tuesday group at Stanford tonight, we're going to spend 2.5 hours having the therapist practice the death of their own ego, responding to impossibly ridiculous criticisms, in quotes, from patients, and then learn how to see the truth in that criticism and respond in a warm and effective way. It takes a lot of work to learn it, but for me it has changed my life.
Yeah. One of the things we do, and when we teach Five Secrets, is to ask people to practice like a day or a week of disarms.
Yeah.
And then the next week, all thought empathy.
Yeah,
one technique at a time
per week. Yeah, absolutely. And we have a series of 5 podcasts on that, so you can practice. We show you what technique to practice each week. That can help a lot too. What's our next question? And thanks, Al, for that. I hope we weren't too hard on you, but that question that you raised there, to me, it's one of the most important questions facing the human race: is can we learn to become accountable and to see the truth and to connect with people who are angry with us rather than getting defensive and continuing to do battle. And I don't know, it sounds corny, but I think the future of the human race depends on how we answer that question.
Okay, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more. This is from Guy. If a loved one says, "You never listen," how could I possibly find the truth in that statement? My struggle is how to genuinely agree with an all or nothing statement such as, "You never."
Yeah, this is one of the most classic of all. I smiled when I got it. And then he wrote back a couple of days later and says, "You don't need to answer it. I looked in your book, I read your book, and I figured it out. I know what it is." But the answer, the way if this is the law of opposites, if you agree with a criticism that sounds untrue, you'll prove it's not true.
Well, just like you said, when I said to Al, you're right, I'm always yelling, and you said, well, that's not true, because I can't always be yelling.
Yeah.
So how would you answer this? You never listen.
Yeah. Well, you have to hear the music behind the words. What the person is telling you is true. And what the person is telling you is you're not a good listener and you get defensive all the time. And here you sent an email saying, how can I be defensive? Do you see? You should look at what's wrong and what she's saying. But what she's saying isn't wrong, it's true. And you say it's just painful for me when you say I never listen, because I agree with you 100%. There have been so many times when I haven't listened to what you were trying to tell me. And I've almost always get defensive and try to prove you wrong, and that must be so frustrating for you and so hurtful. And I can imagine you feel so ticked off at me and so lonely. And all these years I've been just thinking, you're wrong, and now I see that I'm the one who's in the wrong here. And I want you to tell me more about that and other things I've done or said that have hurt you and angered you and turned you off. I care about you so much, and I'm ready to listen now. I want to hear what it's been like for you. How's that?
That's really great. I'm ready to listen now.
Yeah.
Wait, I have an unscripted question.
Yeah.
So I know the 5 secrets. I'm not an expert at it, but I've been doing it for a while. And I say them all the time to my husband. And every once in a while I think, hello, could you please disarm me for a change?
Well, that's another great question. And I've always said that loneliness is a lonely road. And I used to get mad about that too. When is somebody going to do that for me?
Right.
And it's another entitlement. The Buddha got over that at some point too. He used to feel that. So did Moses. So did Jesus. They were all real pissed off for a while until they finally achieved their true enlightenment. But
entitlement. Okay.
But there is an answer to it, and I would say when you use the 5 secrets skillfully, you'll be richly rewarded for it. You'll have a lot of much more loving relationships than you've ever had in the past.
Okay, how about one more?
Yeah,
we have time for one more.
Is there only one more?
Well, no, but we only have time for one more.
Oh.
Sonja said, I recently read your book, Feeling Good, and now I listen to your podcast. I'm so thankful my doctor suggested I give your book a read, as it has helped me with the constant anxiety I had related to perfectionism. My friends and family can see real growth in me too, and I feel a difference. Thank you so much. Here's my question. I find myself completely exhausted by people with extensive self-pity. When I engage in conversation with people who are feeling sorry for themselves and painting constant pictures of victimization, I find myself not only wanting to point out how much of a victim they are being, but I get angry and frustrated. Even when someone seems to be legitimately victimized, I find myself feeling frustrated at the person crying about how sad their life is. I find myself saying things to myself like, take action for yourself, do something, you're not a victim. Do I lack empathy? I can relate to how people are feeling, but it doesn't take long for me to feel super annoyed by all the boo-hooing. I seek to be more compassionate, but I find myself so deeply annoyed with self-pity in others. Thoughts? Thank you so much, Sonja.
And then we had another version of that, but we don't need to read it. Who was the name of the other person who wrote that same question? Sonia? Or was this Sonja?
That was Sonja.
And then what's
Eileen?
Eileen, yeah, there was another one with a similar question. And the answer to this is very clear-cut. I guess the quick answer is read my book, Feeling Good, together, and you'll get the answer to that in all of your relationship problems. But the answer here is that when someone is a whiner or a complainer, and I guess we're labeling them, which is kind of unfair, but we all get ticked off, and we know people who whine and complain a lot. And the secret is to stop trying to help them, stop trying to cheer them up, and respond with the disarming technique and stroking and a little feeling empathy. And if you do that, they'll get turned right off. I mean, in a good way. They'll immediately stop complaining. The deeper answer is if you fill out a relationship journal in my book and say, what did the other person say and what did you say next? And then you analyze that interaction, and I show you how to do that in the book, you'll discover you're actually forcing them to whine and complain.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, but let's do a quick example of how stroking and disarming and feeling empathy work. In other words, you agree with what they're saying. You say something kindly and admiring to them, and feeling empathy, you acknowledge their feelings. Why don't I be the whiner? You see if you can use these techniques. Yes, you know, I go to these doctors and I've got hemorrhoids, and you know, all they seem to care about is money, and you know, my children don't really love me, and you know, and then our politics is just terrible. We've got a terrible president, or I could say we've got a wonderful president, and everybody hates him, and they don't know how great he is, and you know, this younger generation is just no damn good.
Yikes.
How was that?
That's pretty good.
And my elbow is sore. And nobody seems to care about me.
That's enough.
Nobody loves me.
Jeez. No one loves, so, you know, wow, David, you have a lot going on. You're going to the doctor for hemorrhoids. You don't have a lot of money. Your children don't love you. Politics are terrible, whatever side you're on. Younger generation isn't doing well. They're no damn good, and no one really loves you. I can just imagine how sad you're feeling right now, and how, you know, frustrated and angry and kind of lonely. It seems like you're pretty alone, and you know you're a really good friend, and it hurts to hear you say all that.
It's pretty good to give you B because you didn't use the most important technique, the disarming technique.
I didn't.
You used thought empathy.
I did thought empathy. I went right to thought empathy, feeling empathy.
Do a quick role reversal. It was pretty good, but the disarming technique is where you hit the home run.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm glad this is imperfect because it won't be perfect for our fans either. It's hard to learn these things. Rhonda's a tremendous expert.
Well, okay, I'm going to give you kind of different ones.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I came back from Mexico. I have horrible GI problems. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so embarrassing. And, well, you know, my knee is sore from all the walking around we've been doing, and I don't have any time to get all the work done I need to get done. And none of my patients this week have come in with their credit cards, so I worked all week and didn't get paid a penny. And I don't think my husband is really understanding me very well. And ouch, I hurt my back the other day. Just life sucks.
Well, my heart goes out to you, and I feel badly because I agree 200% with everything you're saying. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night. I wasn't even in Mexico, and I was up 3 times with a little bit of runny bottom, I have to admit, and it was sucky. But I know that you were in Mexico teaching for free and with a huge trip. Then you came back, and you've had a massive amount of work to do for the Feeling Good podcasts and for your patients. I too have felt that you're way overworked and way under-rewarded, and you're so chipper. I can't believe how you managed to do that. And then having your patients come in and kind of not bringing their credit cards, it seems kind of passive-aggressive, if I can use a psychological term, and you're giving, and you're not getting any understanding from your husband, and maybe not even from me, and you're just fantastic, and you deserve a whole lot better than that. Tell me more about that. I really want to hear about it.
Wow, that was fantastic.
Yeah, and then the person just can't keep complaining.
No, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah,
I felt kind of embarrassed I told you all that in the first place.
Yeah, and then the thing about it is the reason it works is because someone who complains is looking for someone to agree with them, and to say how upset they are, and to comfort them, and to say you deserve better. And if you're willing to do that, their complaining will instantly stop. But it's got to come from the heart, and if they sense you're trying to manipulate them, it won't work. The 5 Secrets is not a way to manipulate people, but a way to develop loving relationships. So is that about it?
I think that's about it, because Eileen's question was very similar to that. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I think this was a pretty fun podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Rhonda.
Thank you, David, and everyone for listening again.
Oh, just one quick thing. I've always have workshops coming up. You can come in person. I'm going to do 3 intensives this summer. I don't even know when this podcast will be published, but in July, I'm going to do one in Calgary, Canada, in South San Francisco at the end of July. And then I think in November, sometime in the late fall, early winter. I think
November 3rd.
Late fall, yeah, November 3rd. I'm going to do my first intensive, 4-day intensive in Atlanta, Georgia. So to make a long story short, if you'd love to come to one of my 4-day intensives, they're loads of fun. Just go to my website, www.feelinggood.com. Go to the workshop page, and you'll find all the information and the links for registration and for details right there. So anyway, thanks, everyone.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. The theme music is Gypsy Jazz in Paris, 1935, composed and performed by Brett Van Donsel. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.